What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Well, once again, the Chinese fucked me.
Give it to me! Come on, you sissies, I can fit more of you!
Maybe looking at this pile of parts here, wondering, Jesus Christ, Ken, what are we gonna do? Well, I'll tell you what we're gonna do. I came in the shed, and it looked as though somebody took a piss all over the floor, just inside the doorway, which is conveniently and unfortunately where the diesel heater is located. Take a guess. You're absolutely right. Piss and fuel all over the place. So I'm going to show you guys something. Now, it's ugly, all right? It's fucking ugly. I don't want to hear it. I know it's ugly. It's a shitty installation. You're preaching to the choir. I already know that it looks like shit, but I'm going to show you anyways. I'm inviting myself to just endless ridicule here. I mean, I really don't give a shit what you think about it. I'm telling you right now, it's a shitty way to do it, so don't do it the way that I did it. But in order to show you what's going on, I have to show you the diesel heater, and you're going to be fucking mortified with the way that this thing is set up. I'm going to show it to you anyway, so fucking buckle up, buddy. There it is.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
It's a fucking mess. I told you it was going to be a mess before I even showed it to you, so just fucking save it, all right? What happened was, what I've come to find out upon further inspection is the outlet, the coupling that runs through the fuel tank to supply the fuel out has come loose. So it's pissing fuel out of the fuel tank. As if that wasn't enough, those shitty little green fuel lines that come stock with these types of heaters has also split. So it's pissing fuel out of the line as well. Outside of the shed that we're in right now, there is a much smaller shed that butts right up against this one. It's protected from the elements. It's watertight. So the heater is going to go inside that shed. What I want to do is take the warm air of the shed, return it to the heater, warm it again. You understand what I'm saying? If you're wondering about the exhaust, well, you can't see it, but inside this mess of bricks right here, the exhaust runs down and through a piece of round pipe in the wall and then out to a vent. So outside the shed, it looks pretty good. There's a nice vent, very similar to like, you know, your dryer vent on the other side of your house. There's that right on the other side of this wall. So on the outside, everything looks good. When you come inside, you know, this is what you're looking at. Those of you that have been freezing your balls off and need heat, you're gonna set one of these things up quickly. You want to start getting this thing running and warming the air. So that's what you're looking at. This is the fucking act of a desperate man, for Christ's sake.
He's begging for his life. What a bitch! What a bitch!
Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to fucking nut up and deal with it tomorrow. Let me tell you, it's long overdue. It has to be done, and I'm gonna be much happier with the result, having done it the right way. So here we go. Well, good morning, everybody. Today we're going to get this diesel heater installation done. I'm just going to bang it out. I do have the space heater running just so we can work, you know, somewhat like a gentleman in here. Now what I got to do is I'm just going to do it off camera because there's no sense in walking you through me taking the diesel heater apart from where it is now. So that's what I'm going to do, and then we'll come back to it and we'll clean the whole heater up because, like I said, there's diesel fuel all over the fucking thing. So I got to clean that up before I can move any further with it. Then we have to replace the fuel line. We're going to add in a fuel filter, so forth. Once we're done with that, we'll empty out the small shed so we can have some room to work in there. We'll install the heater in there. We'll run the ducting inside the shed. So yeah, let's get to it. All right, guys. So I'm sure you can see just on the ground around this thing, there is just diesel fuel. It's covered in diesel fuel. I'm not exactly sure what the fuck happened to it, but there is diesel fuel all over it. So now really what I have to do before we can move any further is clean this up as best I can, get as much of this diesel fuel off of this thing, and then start replacing our fuel lines. Whew. All right, guys, so this thing's been scrubbed down, degreased, completely cleaned. I replaced the old fuel line. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, They send you these really, really awful fuel lines. They're just terrible. And I knew that right away that these things needed to be replaced. I just never did it. I mean, this is really shitty. This is like the type of hose that you would use for a fucking air pump on an aquarium or something. It's junk. So I replaced it with this much more rigid line here. I also added in a fuel filter before the pump, and the new line, you know, it just runs under and into the combustion chamber. Now, another problem I had was the fuel tank itself. Now, this coupling here was leaking fuel. It was just letting fuel piss out of here. So we had fuel coming from two locations. I had it leaking out of the tank itself, and then I had it leaking from a split in the line just before the pump. So fuel was just pouring down all over this thing. I do not have a new coupling. I don't have a new piece like that. So what I've done is I have added a new rubber gasket. I've tightened it back down, and then I've also added some gutter seal. Now, this is a fucking janky way to do this, right, guys? But I just used like a palette knife for painting, and I just smeared such a generous amount of that gutter seal all around this thing. I'm hoping that that will alleviate my problem. Diesel fuel can be a solvent, right? My grandfather used to clean a bunch of his shit in diesel fuel. So the diesel fuel, if it continues to leak from this location, may just eat right through this gutter seal. I have no idea, but I'm just trying things out here. So while this gutter seal dries, I'm not going to touch this thing anymore. What I have to do now is empty out the small shed, get some lumber together, because I do want to build just like a small little pedestal for this thing to sit on inside of the shed. And then we have to start hole sawing through the wall to run our ductwork. So there's a bunch of steps to go before we can actually move this thing into its new location. So let's get to it. All right, guys, welcome to the pit of hell. Now, this is exactly what I was trying to describe to you earlier. Now I think it's going to be a little bit easier to understand just having the visual. So this section of the wall here, coming in about 13 inches, is where the exterior wall of the much larger shed that we usually build and record in, that is where it butts up to the wall of this smaller shed. So what I'm able to do with that is mount the diesel heater in here and run ducting through the wall. I'll run the exhaust for the heater itself right out through this little vent here. I don't think that should be a problem. To be honest with you, I'm not even sure what the hell's behind this thing. Oh, no shit. Let me tell you something. There's probably fucking 10 grand worth of bricks back here. In any case, let's get cracking on our small little base that this diesel heater is going to sit on. Yeah, it shouldn't have to be about 28 inches. Why does that not look very level? It says it is. I don't know if I'm buying that. Now I need to cut a piece at 24 will do us. Look what it is. This part right here is kind of a pain in the ass because I can't see what I'm doing, right? I'm just feeling around. Now, as long as I don't drop this wrench, we'll be good. Oh yeah, she's off the fucking asshole. All right. Now I'm just gonna add one more of these here. A trick, set these prior to getting it in the air, then you're not really wrestling with it the whole time. You know what I mean? Also, get that center one in first. Then you can pivot off of that. Like so. Fuck. That'll do. Whoo-wee. Fucking ears are ringing. Let's see. Oh yeah. Yep, she'll sit right on that. So now I'm gonna place the heater out here. I need to get a basis of where I'm going to punch these holes for the shed. All right, so I have the heater just kind of mocked up here for a second. So I've made some marks underneath on the feet where I'm gonna bolt it down to. So I'll drill a little bit close. Then I've also made my marks that I'm gonna have to drill to run the ducting in. So I've made my hot air here, and then my return up here. There it is, buddy. All right, guys. It's just too goddamn cold to sit out here and fucking keep messing with the camera, turning it on and off, and all that. I mean, I can barely feel my fucking hands anymore. So I'm gonna wrap this up, at least the outdoor portion. So the heater, as you can see, is installed. It's running. If it wasn't making much sense before, hopefully this makes a little bit more sense for you. So we have our return here on top, and we have our fresh hot air being piped in through here. Our exhaust is just run out through the shed. I'm probably going to add a piece of plate, steel plate right here, just as a sort of a heat shield. Right now I just have some metal tape on there. I know metal tape isn't a heat shield. It's operational. It's working great so far anyway. I don't see any leaks, but time will tell. So we have a whole new fuel line, fuel filter, etc. And everything is hooked up and operational. What I also think I'm going to do is splice in maybe like an extra 20 feet of wire to the controller here in the front, and I'll run that right inside the shed. That way I don't have to come out here for anything other than to refuel it. All right, we've moved back into the shed now. So hopefully this is starting to make a little bit more sense to you. So we've gone from outside the smaller shed just on the other side of this wall where we actually have the diesel heater installed, and now here is where we have piped through our hot air and then our return. What's happening right now is the hot air is just being piped in, and then very rapidly it's just being sucked right back out. I need to extend my hot air a little bit further into the shed just to be some, more efficient. What's going on right now is just basically a very short circular system. It's just taking the air right from this area and pulling it back through the return. Albeit it is warm in the shed for sure, but to make this more efficient, I really do need to do one of two things. It's either move the return to a different place or pipe the hot air to a different place. And I don't really like having the hot air right by the door. This door is pretty drafty to say the least. So I want to move this as far away as possible. Hopefully this return system will kind of help move the hot air through the shed back toward it. And just, like I said, be a little bit more efficient. So after shutting the heater down, letting everything cool, I was able to get those two pieces of pipe attached. One other thing I did was I removed the controller from the heater, and I'm just going to extend this wire. It's just 3 wires. It's like a basic thermostat, really. So I'm going to extend this just a little bit, probably like another 3 or 4 feet, and then I'm going to run this line through with the return and the power. And then I'll seal all that in with insulation as well. But I want to be able to put this controller inside the shed here, somewhere on the wall, perhaps. That way I don't have to go out inside the enclosure every time I want to turn the heater on or off or change its temperature. Now, while I did have some shrink tubing somewhere, I can't seem to find it, so I'm just going to electrical tape this together. Now, I'm sure some of you guys are all up in arms for the way that I'm doing this here. You're really offended by how I'm installing this heater and so forth, and while I can appreciate your concerns, I really couldn't care less. Now, once the heating situation is taken care of in the shed, I really do need to start finding out where all these drafts are coming from. The number one offender of it is the door. That door is absolutely fucked. I'm not sure what the previous owner of this house did. Not much. They were the type of people that think that coats of paint preserve the structural integrity of things. There we are. Now I'm just going to strip these ends here. Not sure what gauge this is. Probably 16 if I had to guess. So now I'm just going to use some connectors from this little Harbor Freight set that I have to make short work of this. This may not be somebody's preferred method, but this is what I'm doing. So that's really all I have to say about that.
And that's all I have to say about that.
That'll do. And back to my previous comment, I'm not saying that I don't care what anybody thinks about what I'm doing. If you have some actual advice or ways that I can do things better, by all means, please share that with me. But if you feel the incessant need to let everybody know just how intelligent you are, you can fucking save that, dude, because I don't want to hear it, and pretty sure nobody else wants to hear it either.
And all I can hear is criticize, criticize, criticize.
Now, in most instances, I would solder the wire onto these connectors, but I really don't think this calls for it. Yeah, once again, if this was going to be used for like a model railroad or something like that, I would 110% solder these connections. So guys, this is it. We're done. Just gonna wrap the video up. So we have our return line up top there, which is pulling warmer air from the shed back through the system, circulating it through the heater again, and then being piped in nice and hot through this bottom pipe here, this flex at the bottom, you can see. So it's just a cycle, right? Much like how a house, forced hot air in a house runs. You have your vents, which push the fresh air in, hot air or whatever, and then you have a return line, which will pull that out, because as we know, it's much easier to keep air warm than it is to take freezing cold air and keep making it hot. And that would be, without that return line, that's exactly what would be happening. I would be pulling freezing cold air from the atmosphere that's outside through the heater and then piping it in, and that's just making the heater work very, very hard, and it's very inefficient. So this is much better. Once the shed gets up to temperature, all it has to do is keep cycling that warm air. It's very efficient. Now initially, probably the first 20 minutes to half hour that I turn that heater on for the day, it is going to be cycling freezing cold air and moving it through and having to warm it up. That will be a thing that has to happen. There's really no way around that. I suppose I could run the heater 24/7 on, you know, setting 1 or whatever, but I don't really think that's necessary. I'm very happy with this system, so I'm glad we did it. This is how it should have been done from its inception to the shed. I should have done this initially when I got the heater, but I didn't. So anyways, we made it right now. As you saw, we added about 4 to 5 feet, something like that, of wire to the controller, spliced that in, and then snaked it back through and hooked it up to the heater again. So now our controller is inside the shed, so we can turn it on and off. We can manipulate its temperature control, all of that stuff. The only reason to actually go out to where the heater is now is to refuel it. So as always, guys, I really do appreciate you watching. There's a million videos that you could have clicked on. If you clicked on this one, it does mean a lot to me. See you later.